Hello and welcome to another episode of Who Knew in the Moment, the podcast. I'm your host, Phil Friedrich. And today we have a familiar face back with us, Justin, and we are going to talk through his book. And we've got it here, so you guys are going to need to go get it. But he's the author of The Power of Ownership. And really, just kind of talking through what are the things that you can own and the things that you can do to cultivate the life that you want instead of, well, ending up wherever it might be. So, Justin, thanks so much for being on today, my man.
It's so good to be here, and I know we had a great first time, Phil, and now we'll run it back again.
Yes. Well, to kick it off, since our first recording, and now we're in number two, you released the book officially, and it was ranked, or it's risen to the ranks of number 46 in the USA Today polls. So one, congratulations on that. But talk a little bit about, releasing a book and then having the reception that it has, right? A lot of people release books, only so many get into rankings.
No, to be honest, it's very humbling. It's very humbling to just even the rankings are one thing, but I think a lot of it is just the feedback that I'm getting from people as to this book is changing my life. I wish I read this book 20 years ago. I wish that I had this access to information 5 years ago. I wish that I wish you would have written this 10 years ago. Like, these are the things that I just keep hearing. And the DMs, the text messages of the pages that are all highlighted or circled, or just things that are in there. And I think I told you the story last time where I really believe that those words are not mine. They were divinely downloaded from God as I just got close to the deadline of having to turn it in, and just being like, this wasn't the book I was supposed to write, and completely redid it in the span of 5 days, where it was just a supernatural flow state that I was in that allowed this to be what it is. And I always say we do what we can so that God can do what we can't. And that was what allowed the book to do what it's been doing. And so it's just so humbling to see.
I love it. So we're going to give folks a little bit of a appetizer of what they can get when they get the entirety of the book, but you break it down into four main pillars. And so pillar number one is fuel. So talk a little bit about, what you mean by that and what are some tangible things people can be doing.
Yeah. So when you think about like the way that I've broken up the book, and I'll dive into fuel here in a second, is the first portion is called understanding different. Like, what does it mean to live differently? The world tells us that we have to push, that we have to succeed, that we have to aspire, that we have to continually go, 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 go. But if that's normal and what the world tells us, then we also have to accept what's normal in the outcome frame, which is chronic illness, leading cause of death in the United States, chronic disease. These things are just dropping us left, right, and center, and living with this state of dysfunction is ultimately earning us our illness. And so if that's not what we desire, we have to first off garner awareness. And we do that through data. And I talk about that in the book, a lot about HRV, heart rate variability specifically. That really gives us this deep metric, this data point to understand how we're adapting to stress and strain, and how can we start to do things differently. And then so people are like, okay, Justin, I know I don't want to be normal. I know I want to be different. I now have a newfound awareness of what HRV is. Now, how do I change this? And so that's where I come back into these four pillars of different points that you can pull on to create this newfound level of capacity that starts with fuel. And fuel comes in two forms: nutrition and hydration. And there's a bunch of different habits under each one. So when we come into the nutrition space, it's not what diet can you be on, but rather how can we get really specific as to what you need in terms of habit structure. What time are you eating? What time are you stopping eating? How many meals are you having a day? What's your protein content? What are the micronutrients that you're looking at based on cellular deficiencies from the cellular blood testing that we do, that we operate within? How are we hydrating? How much water are we getting in a day? Do we have even the awareness of how much water we're getting in a day? Do we know that we need half our body weight in ounces of water? What's the electrolyte balance that we're putting into our water each day? Because we know that water is more than just water. It actually has electrolytes that absorb it, that allow it to be absorbed into the cell. So all of these things come back to this. And why do I come back to data? Is because once you start changing certain habits in fuel, we should see HRV rise because we now have a greater capacity to handle more stress because we're now operating at an elevated level. And so this is the pattern that you start to see through this whole book of data drives awareness, which drives habit and behavior change, which drives us back to a newfound data to get us more aware that changes our habits again. And so these are these ways in which we do it. And it all just depends on what lever system we're pulling, which takes us from fuel into build.
Yes.
And from build, we go into training and movement. So how are we exercising? How much are we walking? What does our cardiovascular routine look like? Are we getting sprinting in every single day? Are we doing some type of resistance training? Are we stopping exercising 2 hours before bed to get best types of sleep? And then the other portion of build is mindset.
Yeah.
Is what are we doing from a mindset standpoint to build? Because mental, physical, spiritual, emotional stress, our body doesn't know the difference. And so if all of a sudden we are doing all the exercise, we're training 3 days a week, we're training 4 days a week, we're running 2 days a week, we're sprinting once or twice a week, we're playing some form of sport 1 day a week, we're doing all the things exercise-wise, we're hitting our 10,000 steps a day, but we aren't journaling, we aren't doing breath work, we aren't meditating, we aren't giving ourselves white space, we're not connected to a spiritual community, we're not doing any of these things. There's a gap in how we're built. We're not equally yoked in this physical to mental and emotional space. And it's going to create an issue. And so I'm not saying we need to do all of these things, but where do you need to start? And once you start, you're going to notice a change in heart rate variability, which leads us to number 3, which is renew. Renew is in the form of self-care and environment. Self-care, what is this something that you only do for you? Because a lot of us think self-care as mindset practice, self-care is meditation, self-care is breath work. Those things are hard. They're difficult. They're things that you have to lean into. They're disciplines, they're practices. When I say something just for you, like maybe you get re-energized when you watch a stupid show on TV.
Yeah.
Maybe you get re-energized when you go golfing. Maybe you get re-energized when you go and get your nails did.
Yep.
Maybe you get re-energized when you go take your dog for a walk. But what is it that the only thing that you do for you? 30 minutes a day, what does that look like? And then environment is, what's the environment you're in? Are you indoors under fluorescent lights for your entire day? Do you see the outdoors? Do you get your feet on the bare ground? Do you get exposed to bright light throughout the day? Do you have all these lights on all day long? Are you in artificial air and air conditioning all day? Like, what does your environment look like? Are you dealing with noise that's just constant noise pollution? Are you dealing with people that are constantly pulling on your soul strings all day? Like, what does this look like so that you can create an environment by design? So Renew looks at environment and self-care, so that we can develop certain habit structures that, again, will be validated or course corrected by HRV, which brings us to the last pillar, which is repair, which looks at sleep and immune response. Sleep, what do our sleep routines look like? 3 hours before bed, no food. 2 hours before bed, no more hard decision-making practices. 1 hour before bed, no more blue light. And then when we wake up in the morning, 0 hitting the snooze button so that we can maintain a consistent sleep and wake cycle. Like these things are done on purpose so that we can get the best outcomes that we need. Then you come in, you look at immune response. Well, under immune response, are we making sure that we have a supplementation routine? Are we getting hot exposure every single day? Are we using cold exposure when our HRV is elevated, meaning we have a greater capacity to handle purposeful stress? Do we have these practices put in place so that we can actually do things? And you start to see these overlaps, right? Where environment and immune response, for example, immune response, a great one is getting 15 minutes of sunshine exposure, getting your feet on the bare ground. Well, that also has an environmental play in it. So you start to see how these pillars and these foundational principles start to interweave and overlap, so that as you start doing one thing, you're actually doing 5 things that you were unaware of before, and it impacts HRV in a positive way. And so this is the whole concept of the book, is how do I live differently? How do I understand what living differently looks like? How do I ultimately know if what I'm doing is working? And then what is the framework in which I can start to do things? And what is my first step? That's what I wanted people to know.
I love it. So taking that last sentence and saying, "What is my first step?" Somebody listening right now is like, "This all sounds really good. I've heard about doing cold plunges. I've heard about red light therapy. I've heard about I should get 10,000 steps, whatever it is." But there's been a catalyst, or there hasn't been a catalyst to get them to start. So what's your encouragement on, hey, finding, that one thing or one or two things that you can take immediate action on and start, the process of moving your, HRV in the right direction.
Yeah. So number one is, I mean, go get the book. Go get the
Yeah.
book because there's so much inspiration, aspiration. You've got it right there.
Yeah.
Inspiration, aspiration, and knowledge in this at thepowerofownershipbook.com. You can still grab it there, or you can just grab it on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, anywhere. But the second thing is stop waiting.
Yeah.
Stop waiting. I hear this from people all the time. And actually, to be honest with you, I did a live workshop this morning here in Miami. And there was this lady that everybody in the room was just so on board. There was people that signed up right there. There was people that were getting started right there. There were people that were taking action. And this one lady goes, yeah, well, I just like being stressed. And I kind of looked at her, I said, well, tell me why. She's like, well, I'm fine. I'm not realizing any changes yet. And this is how delusional a lot of us are.
Yeah.
She goes, well, I'm not realizing any changes yet. Her friend beside her goes, and I won't use her real name, Darlene, you've been complaining of premenopause for 6 months. And she's like, well, that's not the cause of it. And I'm like, Darlene, that's the exact cause of it.
Yeah.
The outcomes that you have in your life today are a direct correlation of the habits and behaviors that you've had over the course of time.
Mm.
That's it.
Yep.
Your habits and behaviors are simply a vote for who you want to become tomorrow. And if you're unaware of where you're at, just because you haven't had a catastrophic event or because you haven't hit rock bottom doesn't mean that it's not time to start and do something differently.
I love that. Now, what about the person that had been in a good routine? They're like, I
Yeah.
was doing this, but I fell off the wagon and I just, I haven't got back into it yet. What
Get up
about
and
somebody
go.
there? Yeah.
Get up and go. Like I've fallen off the wagon 45 times. I've just gotten back up 46.
Yep.
Like that's it. Like there's no, I think so often in this personal development space, in this health and wellness space, we think about the pursuit of performance or the pursuit of greatness as the pursuit of perfection.
Yeah.
Well, performance, greatness, it's just the pursuit of better.
Yeah.
It's a constant journey. There is no such thing as perfection.
Yep.
And when we realize that the pursuit of greatness is just the pursuit of better, it allows us to show up and be forgiving, be loving, be non-judgmental, and just be where we are. What is going to work for Phil does not work for Justin. What works for Justin will not work for Phil because we're individuals and we need to have an N of one solution that helps get us to the finish line and live life in an optimized way, not in a perfect way.
I love that. Well, and to that, and once again, you can speak to this. I think your comment there is the pursuit of better instead of perfection is so important because consistency makes us better, but it just being consistent doesn't mean you're going to be perfect, right? Consistency doesn't mean Justin hasn't ever taken a day off of working out. It might mean, hey, I consistently work out, 4 or 5 times a week, right? But there might be a day that I'm just like, you know what? The body needs to regroup, and that I know that that's the best thing for me. So talk a little about that idea of consistently doing something instead of feeling like I have to be perfect in my pursuit of it.
Consistency is the compound interest of health.
Yeah.
Consistency is the compound interest of health. And there's a certain point to where the results exponentially start to show up. Take any industry, for example. You're in the financial space.
Yeah.
What would you rather? Would you rather me give you $10 every single day for the rest of your life, or would you rather me give you a penny that compounds every single day for the rest of your life?
That's right. Yes, sir.
You're going to take a penny that compounds every single day. Why? Because I think it's only, I have to do the math on this, but I think it's only 64 days before you're giving me like $1 million.
That's right. Yep.
So at the end of the day, it's not that going and doing 20-minute runs every single day is unacceptable or that you have to be perfect at it, but there will be a certain point at which you do these things over and over and over again that you start to see something great. Now, why is consistency so hard? Because you're going to go for runs every day for the next month and you're still going to be overweight.
Yeah.
You're going to start eating better for the next month and you're not going to see six-pack abs. You're going to go to bed on time for the next month and you're still going to wake up tired. You're going to journal or meditate for the next month and you're still going to be anxious. But it's staying true to it. It's staying in that over the course of time, over and over and over again, that one day there's going to be just this exponential realization as to what happened. And it's only because you stuck with it. And the data is what makes it worth it. The data is what gives you the aha moment to there is progress. I am moving in a direction that I'm wanting to go, and I'm doing things in the right way.
I love it. I love it. Well, Justin, this is great, man. And the book is phenomenal. Everyone go out and, like Justin said, hey, you can either go to his specific website or you can go and check it out on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, I mean, literally wherever books are sold. But it's a bestseller and it will continue to rise in the ranks. I have no doubt. You shared a clip on your Instagram, and it was just the fact that it's impacting people, right? It's one of those books where there's going to be life-changing material. So go out, get that book. Justin, anything you want to leave the audience with?
No matter where you're watching this, no matter what space of life you're in, I just want you to know that you're not broken. That you're not broken, no matter what you're realizing, no matter what you're feeling, no matter what you're going through. And the reason I can say this because I've been you. I've been in those shoes where I feel like I'm never going to get my health. I've been in the place where I don't feel like I'm worthy for health. I've been in the space where I don't think that I'm good enough to be able to ever figure this thing out. I was the guy, if you listen to the previous episode, where I was at the bottom of the barrel. I was told I wasn't going to see my 35th birthday. I was told I was the fat kid. I was the anorexic kid. I was the depressed kid. I was the kid that couldn't get his hands around health. And I'm living proof that all you have to do is continue to keep searching and you're going to find the direction that you need. But you don't have to take 25 years to do it. You can ultimately do it in a much more condensed time if you're simply willing to be coached, to be coachable, and to step into something different.
I love it. Well, thanks again so much, Justin. Everyone, go check out The Power of Ownership. Get it as soon as you possibly can.